not poor because they are lazy. They are poor because they are playing the wrong game, and they are playing it with everything they have. They compete for the same job as 1,000 other candidates. They save in the same accounts that lose value every year. They chase the same promotion that 50 other people are chasing with the same discipline. Machiavelli understood something most people never stop to consider. It is not effort that separates the rich from the poor. It is which game they agreed to play in the first place. This is not a motivational video about working harder. This is a warning about the games that quietly guarantee you lose no matter how hard you play them, and a map of the 7 games that actually pay out for the rest of your life. Ask yourself a simple question before you go any further. Which game are you actually playing right now, today, with the majority of your hours? Not the game you would describe at a dinner party if someone asked what you do. The actual game underneath it, the one your calendar and your bank account would confess to if they could speak honestly. Most people cannot answer this question quickly, and that hesitation is itself the answer. You cannot win a game you have never consciously named. Everyone is playing something whether they realize it or not. The tragedy is that most people never chose their game. It was handed to them by school, by family, by a culture that rewards obedience and calls it ambition. They enter it as children and stay in it for 40 years, wondering why the effort never seems to compound into anything larger than a slightly bigger version of where they started. The people who actually get rich are not smarter than everyone else, and they are rarely working harder in any measurable sense. They simply looked at the board before making their first move, and they chose differently. That single choice, made early or made late, is the entire subject of this video. Rule number 1. Play games with compounding rules, not flat ones. A flat game pays you once for 1 unit of effort and then asks you to do it again tomorrow for the same fixed price. A job, in its purest form, is a flat game. You trade an hour, you are paid for an hour, and the trade resets completely at midnight with no memory of what came before. A compounding game behaves completely differently. The effort you put in today keeps paying you tomorrow, and the tomorrow after that, without requiring you to show up again. A book written once can sell for decades. A system built once can keep running while you sleep. An investment made once can keep multiplying while you're doing something else entirely. The poor man asks how much this pays today. The rich man asks how many tomorrows this single action will still be paying him. Most people never even ask the second question because nobody ever taught them that games with compounding rules existed at all. Think of 2 men laying bricks on the very same day. The first lays a brick, gets paid for that single brick, and starts again from nothing the next morning as if the previous day never happened. The second lays a brick as part of a wall that will still be standing, still sheltering someone, still worth something 20 years after his hands last touched it. Both men are equally tired at the end of the day. Only one of them is still being paid for that day's work a decade later. The market does not care how tired you were. It only pays attention to whether what you built kept existing after you stopped touching it, which is the entire difference between a flat game and a compounding one. And almost nobody explains it to you before you have already spent a decade laying bricks that vanish overnight. But there's something even more dangerous than picking a flat game by accident. It's picking a crowded one on purpose, which brings us to rule number 2. Never compete where the whole world is standing. The most obvious opportunity is, by definition, the opportunity everyone else already sees, which means it is already saturated with competitors before you even arrive. Picture a single narrow doorway with 10,000 people pushing toward it at once. Some will get through, most will be crushed in the effort, and even the ones who succeed will have spent nearly everything they had just to squeeze past the crowd. Now picture a second unmarked door 50 steps away that nobody is even looking at. because it does not look like the obvious path to anything. That door is usually unguarded precisely because it is unglamorous. The games with the least competition are rarely the games anyone brags about at a dinner table, and that is exactly why they remain profitable for the people willing to walk through them. Machiavelli would tell you plainly that the crowd is never wrong about what looks appealing, and almost always wrong about what is actually available. The prize everyone can see has already been priced by the crowd fighting over it, and that price is always higher than it looks, paid in time and competition, and the odds stacked against any single player winning. The prize nobody is looking at has not been priced by anyone because nobody thought it was worth pricing. That gap between perceived value and actual value is where the real money hides, every single time. Which door are you currently pushing toward, the crowded one everyone agrees is worth fighting for, or the quiet one nobody has bothered to check? There is a reason this rule is so hard to follow even after you understand it. The crowded door is crowded precisely because it feels safe to stand in a line with 10,000 other people. Nobody was ever fired for applying to the same job everyone else applied to. Nobody was ever mocked at a dinner table for chasing the same promotion everyone else is chasing. The unmarked door offers no such social cover. Standing alone in front of an opportunity nobody else recognizes feels reckless even when the arithmetic says otherwise. And this feeling, not any actual lack of ability, is the real reason so few people ever walk through it. Machiavelli would remind you that comfort and safety are rarely the same thing, no matter how similar they feel in the moment of choosing. Consider a young craftsman deciding where to open his workshop. Every other craftsman in the region has already set up shop along the same busy road in the same crowded district, competing for the same customers, walking past the same storefronts every day. One craftsman instead sets up along a quiet road nobody else has bothered to consider, in a district everyone assumes has no customers worth having. For the first year, the crowded road looks like the obvious winner, full of foot traffic and visible activity. But the crowded road splits its customers 100 ways. And the quiet road, once it finally builds a reputation, splits its customers among only a handful of competitors instead of 100. 10 years later, the craftsman on the quiet road owns the only respected workshop in an entire district, while the 100 craftsmen on the crowded road are still fighting each other over table scraps of the same shrinking margin. The road that looked empty was never actually empty. It was simply invisible to everyone unwilling to look twice. Rule number 3. Choose games where losing still teaches you something worth keeping. Most people avoid risk entirely because they have only ever experienced one kind of loss, the kind that costs you money and gives you nothing back in return. That is a real category of loss, and it should be avoided. But there is a second category most people never learn to recognize: the loss that costs you money and hands you information, relationships, or skill that no win could have taught you as efficiently. A failed venture that teaches you exactly how a market actually behaves is not a pure loss. A rejected pitch that shows you precisely which part of your offer was weak is not a pure loss. The games worth playing are the ones where even the downside leaves you better equipped for the next attempt. Not just poorer and no wiser than before. Ask before you enter any game, not just what you stand to win, but what you stand to learn if you lose, because a game that teaches you nothing on the way down is a game you should never have entered in the first place. Picture two entrepreneurs who each attempt a venture that ultimately fails within a year. The first treated the venture as a lottery ticket, threw in effort without ever tracking why customers said yes or no, and walked away from the wreckage with nothing but a story about bad luck. The second treated the same failure as a controlled experiment, tracking exactly which part of the offer worked, which part of the pricing was wrong, which part of the market simply was not ready yet. A year later, the first man is still telling the same story about bad luck at every dinner party. The second man has already launched something else, built on the exact lessons the first venture handed him for free. The failure was identical. The game each of them was actually playing inside that failure was not. Here is the trap most people never notice they have fallen into. They think safety means avoiding all risk, so they choose the game with the lowest visible danger, which is almost always the game of trading time for a fixed wage. It feels safe because the paycheck arrives on schedule. It is actually one of the riskiest games available, because it has a hard ceiling, no compounding, and total dependence on a single employer's continued goodwill. Compare that to a founder building something of his own, absorbing real visible risk every single day. His risk is loud and obvious. The employee's risk is quiet and invisible, hidden behind the illusion of a steady check. And it is precisely the quiet risk that destroys the most people because nobody warned them it was there at all. Rule number 4, play the game of ownership, not the game of wages. A wage is rented income. It exists only as long as you keep showing up to earn it, and it vanishes completely the moment you stop, retire, get sick, or get replaced. Ownership behaves like a completely different species of income. A business, a piece of property, a share of something productive keeps generating value whether you show up to it today or not. The wage earner and the owner can work the exact same number of hours in a week and end that week in entirely different financial universes because one of them is being paid for his time and the other is being paid for what his capital and his systems produced while he slept. Most people never make this switch, not because they lack the intelligence, but because the wage feels safer in the short term. And the short term is the only term most people have ever been trained to think in. Consider two young men who start their careers on the very same day with the very same skill and the very same ambition. The first spends 15 years climbing a company's ladder, trading hours for a title and a salary that grows a little every year if he performs well and stays likable to the right people. The second spends those same 15 years building something he owns outright, even when it pays him less at the start, even when it is slower, even when his friends in salaried jobs seem to be pulling ahead in the early years. By year 15, the first man's income is still capped by what a single employer is willing to pay one person for one set of hours. The second man's income is no longer tied to his own hours at all. One man is still playing the flat game he started with. The other switched games entirely, and the switch is the only reason the outcomes look nothing alike. Neither man was smarter. Neither man worked more hours in any given week. The only variable that moved was which game each of them agreed to keep playing after the first uncomfortable year. When the wage still looked like the safer bet and ownership still looked like an unnecessary risk. The hardest part of this rule has nothing to do with strategy and everything to do with identity. Most people were raised to believe a steady wage is what a responsible person chooses, and that ownership is what a gambler chooses instead. This is precisely backward, and Machiavelli would call it exactly what it is. A story told by the system to keep the most capable people renting out their hours instead of building something that no longer needs them personally to keep producing. The wage feels responsible because the risk is hidden behind someone else's signature. The ownership feels reckless because the risk is visible and carries your own name. Only one of those two risks disappears the moment you stop showing up. The other one was never yours to control in the first place. Rule number 5. Play the long game when everyone else is playing the loud one. Most people are optimizing for how their progress looks this month, this quarter, this year, because that is the only feedback loop modern life rewards them for paying attention to. The long game asks a completely different question. Not how does this look right now, but where does this compound to in 10 years if I simply do not quit? The person playing the loud game needs constant visible proof that things are working, and the moment that proof slows down, they abandon the strategy and chase the next thing that looks like it is working faster. The person playing the long game has already accepted that the first few years of any real strategy look unimpressive from the outside, and that acceptance alone filters out 90% of the competition before the real payoff ever arrives. Picture a field planted with two different crops on the same morning. One is a fast-growing weed that shoots up within days, draws every eye walking past the field, and then withers just as quickly once the season turns. The other is an orchard that shows nothing visible above the soil for years, drawing no attention at all, mocked by anyone expecting an immediate harvest. The field with the weed looks like progress for exactly as long as it takes for the applause to fade. The field with the orchard looks like nothing at all, right up until the year it starts producing fruit every single season for the rest of the owner's life. Most people plant weeds because weeds are visible by Friday. Almost nobody plants an orchard because an orchard asks you to endure years of looking like you are doing nothing at all. This is not patience for its own sake. It is patience as a competitive weapon because almost nobody else is willing to deploy it. Machiavelli understood that most rivals defeat themselves through impatience long before you ever have to defeat them directly. The market, the industry, the competition, all of it quietly rewards whoever is still standing after everyone else has grown bored and wandered off toward something louder. You do not need to outwork the loud, impatient crowd. You only need to still be playing the game after they have all quit playing it, which turns out to require far less talent and far more discipline than anyone wants to admit. Rule number 6. Choose games where your reputation is the score, not the applause. Most people confuse being liked with being trusted, and they optimize their entire lives for the former because it feels better in the room, in the moment, at the party. But applause is a currency that expires the instant you leave the room, while a reputation for delivering, for keeping your word, for being exactly as capable as you claim to be, compounds every single time someone new hears about it secondhand. The games worth playing are structured so that your reputation does the selling for you long after you have stopped actively pitching anyone. A single deal done well becomes 10 future deals you never had to chase, because the story of the first one traveled ahead of you without any effort on your part. Picture two consultants who each finish a difficult project in the same week. The first spends the following month telling everyone within earshot how well it went, angling for compliments at every gathering he attends. The second says almost nothing about it, and instead lets the client tell the story to 3 other people who each independently reach out the following year with new work, none of them ever having heard a single word about it from the consultant himself. The first man's applause was louder for exactly 1 month. The second man's reputation is still quietly working for him 5 years later, in rooms he has never even entered, introduced by people he barely remembers meeting. The weak chase applause because applause is immediate and reputation is slow. The powerful understand that slow, compounding trust eventually outperforms fast, forgettable approval in every single game that matters over a long enough timeline. Ask yourself honestly which one you have actually been optimizing for this past year. The temporary warmth of being liked in the room, or the quiet, accumulating weight of being known as someone who reliably delivers. Only one of those 2 things is still working for you 5 years after the room has emptied. Rule number 7, and the most dangerous one to explain out loud: play the game nobody else understands yet. Every fortune built ahead of the curve was built inside a game that looked confusing, unproven, or faintly ridiculous to almost everyone watching from the outside at the time. That confusion is not a warning sign. It is the actual entry price of the opportunity, a game that everyone already understands has already been fully priced by everyone who understands it, which is exactly why rule number 2 told you to avoid crowded doors in the first place. A game that still looks strange, unclear, or slightly ahead of common sense is strange precisely because most people have not yet done the work required to understand it. And that gap between confusion and clarity is where the largest rewards of any generation are quietly sitting, waiting for whoever is willing to study long enough to see it first. Every generation has its own version of the confusing door that looked ridiculous right up until it made a small number of patient people extremely wealthy. And every generation also produces a much larger crowd standing outside that door, mocking it loudly for exactly as long as it takes to become obvious to everyone. By the time it becomes obvious, the reward has already been claimed by whoever was willing to sit with the confusion first. The mocking crowd is not stupid. They are simply demanding a level of certainty that by definition is never available at the one moment the opportunity is actually worth entering. Certainty and opportunity move in opposite directions. The more certain a game looks, the more of the reward has already been extracted by whoever arrived before you. This does not mean chasing every strange new idea that crosses your path, mistaking novelty itself for opportunity. It means being willing to sit with genuine confusion long enough to actually understand something before the rest of the world catches up and the opportunity becomes an ordinary crowded game like every other. The people who get rich early inside a new game are rarely the smartest people who eventually enter it. They are simply the first ones patient enough to stop demanding instant clarity and start doing the quiet work of understanding, while everyone else waited for permission from a crowd that was never going to arrive early enough to matter. None of these 7 games are exotic. None of them require a fortune to start, a connection you do not already have, or a piece of luck that has not yet arrived. What they require is a willingness to look honestly at the board you are currently playing on and admit that most of what feels like progress inside a flat, crowded, wage-based, applause-driven game was never going to compound into anything larger than what you already have today. That admission is uncomfortable precisely because it means years already spent were spent inside the wrong game, and nobody enjoys hearing that. But the alternative, continuing to play a losing game simply because switching feels like admitting a mistake, guarantees the exact same outcome for another decade. 7 games, and every one of them shares the same underlying principle once you strip away the specifics. Choose deliberately instead of inheriting a game by default. Choose compounding over flat, quiet over crowded, informative losses over pure ones, ownership over rented wages, patience over performance, reputation over applause, and understanding over waiting for permission. None of these 7 require more talent than the person currently exhausting himself in the wrong game entirely. They require only the willingness to look at the board honestly before making the next move, which is precisely the one thing almost nobody is willing to do because it means admitting the game they have been playing for years might have been the wrong one all along. If this shifted the way you see the games you have been playing, then don't stop here, because what you've heard in this video is only the surface. There are deeper layers to psychology, influence, and wealth that simply can't be explored fully in one video. Not because they don't exist, but because most people aren't ready to hear them. That's why most stay average. If you're not one of them, then subscribe, because every video here is designed to sharpen your mindset, increase your value, and separate you from the crowd. No fluff, no noise, just strategy. Most people will watch this and move on. A few will stay and change. Decide which one you are.